We're glad to see that you're interested in learning more about the Sport Leadership in Nordic Culture Study Abroad program. I'm Dr. Lynn Schallen. I led the program in summer of 2019. It was an awesome experience, and I'm going to use a few minutes here to tell you more about it. So this is a picture of the 2019 group, and we are in front of a massive waterfalls in Iceland, and that's part of what you would see on the trip. We'll spend about 7 days in Stockholm, Sweden. We'll take a 5-hour train ride down to Malmo, Sweden, spend about 5 days there. And we'll take a quick train ride over to Copenhagen, which is in Denmark, and we'll fly out to Reykjavik, Iceland, and spend about 5 days there as well. Just to orient you on the map, if you see off to the left-hand side, we're over in Virginia, which is pretty far over there. And what we would do is fly to Iceland and just have a quick stopover in order to change planes and go over to Sweden. We would spend our time in Sweden and then come back to Iceland, spend our 5 days in Iceland, and come back over to Dulles Airport for our final leg. So if you take a look where the locations are, Iceland, that small island there next to Greenland, and we would be on the east coast of Sweden near the Baltic Sea. And you can see the orientation to the rest of Europe as well. So this course is open to all students. You do not have to be in the leadership program to take this course. There are no prerequisites, so anyone can enroll in this course, but it does count as an elective for the leadership minor and for the new leadership major. If you're not in the leadership program, it counts as general elective credits. And these are some of our students at a national soccer game in Sweden last time we went, having a great time. They did it up with the face paint and flags and all kinds of paraphernalia. So your faculty leaders for the trip will be me and Dr. Kat Callahan. So that's me down on the bottom left, and that's my 8-year-old border collie, Bren. Like I said, I led this trip 2 years ago. I also have been on the study abroad trip to Oxford and traveled extensively internationally on my own for conferences and personal travel. And Dr. Callahan, who's also a leadership faculty member, if you haven't met her yet, she co-led the Oxford study abroad trip last summer, and she's also traveled on her own internationally and led study abroad trips for other institutions as well. So I assure you that you are in good hands with us and that we will have a really great time. So what are we doing in terms of studying sport leadership somewhere else? In the US, we have a pretty unique way of organizing sport that's really different from the rest of the world. And typically folks in the US don't realize that. They think our way is just the way sport always happens. But we're going to look at sport as a global cultural institution and how other nations approach sport at various levels. And we'll consider the effect of cultural context specifically on different levels and types of leadership within various levels and types of sport. So we'll be looking at, youth and recreational programs all the way up to elite level programs and how different cultures approach those sport in terms of organizing them, leading them, getting people to participate in them, how important is winning and losing versus just general participation, and how sport is attached to specific institutions. For instance, in Sweden and Iceland, where we will be, sport is not attached to college or university. So they don't have competitive sport at college and university. They have a really extensive club system and an elite system beyond that, but it's not attached to education. So they have a really different mindset around sport. They also have a pretty strong mindset around sport as a lifestyle. So there's a lot more people just generally participating in sport for fitness and fun than we have in the US. There's a lot of leadership implications for how the culture approaches sport and thinks about sport. So we'll take a look also at assumptions about sport leadership through learning about how the sport's history, its significance and function operate in Nordic cultures. They have a very different history of sport as well, and that influences how they think about and go about sport. Okay. We'll also take a look at your own and others' ways of leading in sport through the lens of different cultural systems. So we'll take a look at your own assumptions and figure out how might we be more expansive with how we think about sport and sport leadership. Also help you take a look at clarifying the relationships among culture, values, sport, and leadership, and get a broader and more complex understanding of leadership in sport and leadership in general by looking through this cultural lens, which we most often don't do in our leadership courses and in our thinking about sport in general. So how are we going to go about all this cool learning? Well, we'll have a lot of discussions with sport leaders at all different levels in their societies. We'll have lectures from folks who study sport management and leadership as scholars in their universities. We're going to tour sport facilities and we're going to attend professional sporting events so you can see these things in practice. We are going to either participate in or cheer, your choice, at the Midnight Sun Run, which happens on the solstice night in Iceland, which means it's 24 hours of daylight. And the Midnight Sun Run obviously happens at midnight, but it is still daylight out, and it's a really big event for them in Iceland. We'll go to cultural museums and explore cultural activities, and we'll also do readings, reflections, discussions among our group, and you'll write an analysis paper to help you think about and integrate all that you're learning about leadership in sport and culture. So here's just a few of the signs of the places that we'll visit so you can see the language and the symbolism that they use around different aspects of sport. The one on the top right is Brigier's Gymnasium. It's a skateboard school. It's literally a high school where they emphasize skateboarding and art. And it's really fascinating, its history and how it came about and how they use sport as a tool in their educational system because it's not attached to traditional education. So there's other sport facilities here down at the bottom with the flags. That's the Olympic Stadium in Stockholm, so we'll visit there and get a tour as well. And here's some photos from last year, the group on the right. That is just before the Midnight Sun Run with all of us ready to go for that. Everyone participated. It was awesome. We had one student who came in first in his age group. We have another student who ran the whole 5K and she had never run before in her life, and everyone was really supportive and proud of her. So it was a great experience. And the top left up there is a picture of one of the many skateboarding parks that they have in Sweden, because that's a really big sport over there. And here's some more pictures of our students on the top, fans at games. That's a handball game in Iceland on the left and a national soccer game in Sweden on the right. And they're actually the picture of the handball game going on down in the bottom photo there in Iceland. And if we get a chance to watch a handball game this coming summer, that will be really awesome. It's a sport we don't typically see in the US, and it's really interesting to watch it happen. So what else will we do? We will sea kayak in the archipelago off the coast of Sweden. So a day trip out sea kayaking with a guide who will tell us about how their culture approaches land use in terms of lifestyle sport, and also just the opportunity to be out on the water and do group sporting activity. We'll do wakeboarding at the wake park in Malmo. I'll show you a picture of that in the morning. This is optional. If you don't want to wakeboard, you don't have to. We'll take a swim at the famous Blue Lagoon in Iceland. We're going to see some huge waterfalls, some really bizarre hot springs that look and smell pretty crazy. We will have time to explore together and separately on your own the cities of Stockholm, Malmo, and Reykjavik, and eat a lot of fantastic food, of course, depending on what you're interested in. We'll talk with the locals to learn about their culture, so we'll encourage you to hear different perspectives, even outside of the formal things that we do. And of course, you'll share a really cool bunch of cultural experiences with a great group of CNU folks. So you'll have our group, but we'll also branch out and, meet other people in these countries, and hopefully you'll get a chance to talk to some locals as well. So that's the wake park on the top left. We'll all get a chance to go wakeboarding if you're interested in doing that. Again, you don't have to. They also have kayaks and stand-up paddle boards if you would rather do that. There's a picture of some of the hot springs in the right top corner. The bottom right is the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, so we'll be going there. And on the left is it's called the Secret Lagoon. It's a hot water lagoon kind of out in the middle of nowhere that we will visit on one of our day trips by bus out to see the sights in Iceland. And here's just some general pictures of the cities and some of the amazing food spread that you see as well. Might have an opportunity to see the changing of the guard at the Royal Palace in Stockholm. The top right picture is the beautiful terrain out in Iceland. We'll have a day trip out into the country to see some of the amazing volcanic and flora going on out there. And there's our group in the top left out on their sea kayaking adventure. That's a little pull off we did off to the side to get a picture. And the bottom right, hopefully we will get to do this again, is a cultural exhibition. It's actually a theatrical exhibition that takes about an hour in Iceland, and you learn about Icelandic culture and the Nordic culture and just the history of how proud they are of their Viking culture and what it means for them today, because it's very strong there today as well. And our group got to take a photo afterward with the actors, so that was a great experience. We learned a lot and had a great time. It was really funny. So a few requirements before the trip. We'll have some mandatory meetings in the spring to talk about logistics, to answer your questions, to talk about expectations. You'll have some readings and 3 reading quizzes on Scholar in May before we leave. You'll need to get transportation to the Washington Dulles Airport for our departure and drop you off at the airport and pick you up. During the trip, we'll have group discussions scattered throughout the days. They'll be scheduled so you know when they are, and we'll have 10 individual reflective writings where we're going to ask you to integrate and process and reflect on some of the things that you've experienced and learned. We expect full participation in all the lectures, tours, discussions, and group activities. So if there's certain things that you don't want to do that involve, swimming or wakeboarding, that's fine. You'll still go with the group, but you'll be expected to participate fully in everything one way or the other, rather than being left back at the hotel on your own. And you'll have an analysis paper due in mid-July. You'll have time to work on it once you get back. There's a structured format for it. We'll give you the instructions on how you're supposed to approach it, what we're looking for, length requirements, and all that stuff. And you'll submit it on Scholar sometime in mid-July. There is a lot of walking in this course, so full participation requires a significant amount of walking and mobility that way. Our travel plans, because we'll be using, buses, trains, walking through airports, you will need to carry your luggage for some distance, and we'll talk to you about how much to pack and how to pack so that you're not dragging massive luggage with you as well. And since this course is conducted outside of the US, there may be places that aren't compliant with the American with Disabilities, the ADA Act, and if that's something that pertains to you, then we can have that conversation. We'll be doing at least 4 water-based activities. As I said, it's up to you in terms of participation, but you will be expected to at least go with the group. So if you have concerns about the physical aspect of participation, just talk with me about it, and we'll see what kind of accommodations you might need or whether this is the right trip for you. So in terms of cost, it's a $5,500 program fee, and you can see there what it covers. So you get a fair amount for that fee. Okay, so you won't be paying any extra outside of that except for your meals that you might have during the day that aren't included in our group meals. We typically get breakfast covered at the hotels, so you might just be on your own for lunch and dinner, and you can find some inexpensive ways to do that. You also pay for 3 credits of CNU tuition, so that's not included in the $5,500. Like I said, any other meals, souvenirs, or things that you want to do on your free time. If you want to go to a museum on your own and there's an entry fee, then that's your own payment. Sometimes we have a little extra left in the budget, and I can give everyone a bit of a stipend to help cover some of those things. Credit cards are used extensively in Sweden and Iceland, so we don't have to worry too much about currency exchange, but we can talk about that if this trip is something that you decide that you're going to explore. And in terms of the language barrier, we really don't have an issue with that. English is used extensively in Sweden and Iceland. Once they realize that you are from the US or that you speak English, folks there just speak English to you naturally. Because if you see the last couple words there, that's the Icelandic language, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. So I've been to both Sweden and Iceland twice now each, and haven't had any problem with language either time. Okay. So if you're interested in signing up, applications are going to be accepted through October 31st. Our faculty leaders will review the apps and make decisions and let you know soon thereafter. And obviously with the COVID pandemic going on right now, we recognize that if for some reason there is still a travel ban or it's not safe to run the trip, then you aren't going to be committed to participate. And we as, we as instructors might decide that we aren't able to participate either if it's unsafe enough. So right now it would be committing under the assumption that we would safely be able to run the trip. If there's space left after the October 31st deadline, we'll certainly consider applications on a rolling basis until usually early December. Okay. So there's a website if you want to check out more about this, and you can find the application at that website as well. CNU Study Abroad homepage has information as well. So feel free to email me if you have questions. And this is a great group of fans at the Icelandic handball game that were pretty fun to be around when we were there. Anyway, it's a really fun trip. I have a bunch of students who'd be happy to talk about the trip with you who went in 2019. I'm sure they'll have great things to say, or they can answer specific questions about what their own experiences were like. So if you want to talk to any of them, just get in touch with me as well.